Hello everyone, this is part one, and in this part I'm going to be showing you a little bit about DB files and give some basic. I give a little bit of background knowledge about the DB files and how the game data is stored, whatever. So let's start with Shadow of Chernobyl. So if you install Shadow of Chernobyl on Steam, Good Old Games, whatever, and you want to go to the local files, so installed files, browse. When you open it up, you'll most likely be met with this something similar right here, where you have app.bin mods for Shadow of Chernobyl and a bunch of these files right here called DB files. So game data.db0, .db1, db2, and they go all the way down to db whatever. And these are DB files. See how they're all different. So I'm going to be showing you what these are and how you can unpack these files. So all these files right here contains the game's like data, all the textures, config files, weapon models, whatever, and they're all compressed into these files right here to stop people from rummaging through the game files and to prevent whatever reason you want to compress files, size, whatever. But so we need to unpack them. And you'll find these game data models for a lot of STALKER games and mods. I have two more examples of here of Gold Sphere Completion, which I like to call Gold Sphere OGSE, and the remake of this mod called Gold Sphere OGSR. The OGSE and the OGSR and the names indicate the engine that these games are running on. For example, Gold Sphere OGSE is running on the OGSE engine, which is a fork of the engine that Shadow of Chernobyl runs on, which is the X-Ray engine. OGSR is the same. It's another fork, and it's a lot more advanced than OGSE. So that's that. If we open up the game files for these two games right here, you'll see the same screens. You'll have all these DB game data. You have all these DB files right here. This one goes down to DBW. So how are you able to unpack these games and see the game's contents? Well, I used two tools. I use AXRToolset, and another one I had to use for Shadow of Chernobyl, which is called Ultimate DB Converter. I'll have these two in the description. I'll try to link both the original sources of where I found them and my own Google Drive links if they somehow go down in whatever future. So yeah, I'll try to include links for these tools. I'll also try to include links for all the tools I show in this video, but for now let's just focus on these two right here. So the one I like using for this demonstration we'll try Shadow of Chernobyl first because it's what most people will be modding with. This will also Anomaly has a bunch of these game data DB files, so let's go to Anomaly real quick. Anomaly base, and if you go to DB, you'll see all these DB files. I actually unpacked them already. So yep, DB. Actually, I guess I didn't unpack them, but you see DB files. So we need a way to unpack these DB files. So the one I like using the most, but I like using AXRToolset the most, but for Shadow of Chernobyl's case, I couldn't use this tool to work, so we'll use the Ultimate DB and Converter. So let's open up. Oops. 1 second. Didn't mean to close that. There we go. So let's open the converter. And before you start, it's good that you want to have both an input folder and an output folder. I have these two input and output folders right here. So to unpack Shadow of Chernobyl's DB files, I like copying all the game data folders, DB files. Copy them all and putting them in folder. There we go. DB0 to DBD. Yep, looks like it works. And let's use the converter right here. Let's go to DB. Let's select an input and desktop folder 5. Let's select DB0 first. And the format of you also have to select an output. So let's select folder 6. There we go. So to start it, you want to press execute, and there will be a bunch of different formats that will that you may need to select. So if you try 11x and press execute and nothing outputs, it's probably not the correct format. So I think in Shadow Chernobyl's case, the format is 2947WW. This is the one that's for my Shadow Chernobyl game. 1 second, let me put on some chapstick. I'm sorry. There we go, I apologize. So let's press execute, and let's open folder 6 if we can see if anything happens. I'm going to pull up a log, and look at that, a bunch of stuff outputted. So let's do this for all of them. Let's open folder 5. That's DB0, we did DB0, so let's do DB1. DB2, DB3, this should be outputting everything. DB4, it's not taking as long as I thought it would. It usually takes quite a while to output these files, but maybe just faster now, I don't know. See, this one's taking a little bit. There we go. DB5. DB6, DB7, DB8, DB9, and now we go to the letters, DBA. We're just converting all these to folder 6, DBB, DBC. That was quick because it's only 158 kilobytes, and DBD. Looks like that. Looks like that's all good. And for the version of Shadow of Chernobyl I'm playing, we can see if we outputted everything in the game data folders by doing this check. So we're doing something pretty radical here. This doesn't work for all Stalker mods and games, but I was able to get this thing to work for Shadow of Chernobyl and these two versions and these two mods right here, Gold Sphere Completion or Gold Sphere OGSE and Gold Sphere OGSR. I was able to get it working for these two right here and Shadow of Chernobyl. And what I mean is that you're able to put everything that you outputted from the game data DB files. If you name a folder game data and put everything inside that you outputted. Let's there we go. Copy. Paste into here. It'll probably be a lot of files because it's like, I don't know how many gigabytes, so we're copying a lot of files. Probably shouldn't have done that. Let's wait. There we go. I don't know where my folder I just created went. There it is, dump. And once you have everything that you extracted from the DB files into the game data folder, you may be able to simply take all of the DB files and just chuck them out the goddamn game, like game directory. So I just dumped them into this dump folder, and theoretically we should be able to boot up this goddamn game and it should work with everything like extracted into these files. How cool is that? So if you're like planning on modding, or if you want to like fiddle around with like the game, you're able to do it much more easier by having everything just dumped into the game data folder, so you don't have to like It's just much easier to mod. So let's start it. Let's press play on Steam and let's see if it boots, which it should boot. I don't know if this causes any issues in the future, but I was able to do this with my Gold Sphere OGSE and Gold Sphere OGSR like games. I was able to extract everything from the DB files and place them into a game data folder, and it worked. The game worked perfectly fine. It didn't crash because of it. It worked perfectly fine. I don't know if that's the same with Shadow of Chernobyl because I haven't tested it this much with just dumping everything into it.
So, Marked One, I saved you, and I'm not going to pretend I did it to win.
But as you can see, share about DB files. Let me see if I missed anything before I continue. There we go. So that I showed Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, I unpacked every DB files, and it looks like we're good for that section. So we'll start with part 2, which is showing off the different methods of how weapons are implemented. And once you have everything from the DB files dumped into a game data folder, modding becomes much easier. You're able to look at everything, you're able to fiddle with everything, and it's just a much smoother experience. So this method where you're able to unpack everything from the DB files and place them to a game data folder where the game runs perfectly fine with it. That doesn't work for every mod, but with Shadow of Chernobyl, Gold Sphere OGSR, and Gold Sphere OGSE, it did work for me. One mod that didn't work, for example, was Stalker Dreamcatcher. I tried doing that; it didn't work. So it doesn't work for all mods because they may use some proprietary additions that's hard to do. So it doesn't always work. But for this Shadow of Chernobyl, this and this, it works. So let me just stop repeating what I'm saying and let's get on to the next part of the video. All right, see ya. Hello everyone. In this part, I'm going to be showing you, like I said in the video, the 2 ways that I know of how weapons are implemented in the Stalker games and mods. So let me pull up the infographic that I created for this. Here it is. So 2 ways that weapons are implemented via the fixed hand method and via the dynamic method. Let's focus on the fixed hand method first. This method typically used in Stalker games / mods running on older / less featured game engines such as Shadow of Chernobyl, Clear Sky, Call of Pripyat, maybe, I'm not exactly sure, and OGSE engines. And Stalker mods running on the OGSE engine. The main difference is that player hand models and animations are directly baked into the weapon model file directly. This allows less variety in player hand models. The dynamic method solves this issue. I'll be showing you what I mean by this in a few seconds. So, and let's read the dynamic model. This method is typically used in Stalker games / mods running on newer / more featured engines, such as Stalker mods running on the OGSR engine and the Anomaly engine. The main difference with this is that this fixes the player hand variety issue. Firearm animations and hand animations are now 2 separate animation files. This allows variety for player hand models that will show up in game. I'll show you what I mean in a second. You'll typically find higher quality weapon animations using this method also. So all the fancy Stalker Gamma weapon animations you'll probably find using this method. So let's start. So what I mean by the fixes player hand variety issue mentioned in the fixed hand method and the dynamic method. So I'm going to pull up a video of an OGSR engined mod, Stalker mod, and you'll see me equip an outfit while holding a Colt 1911, and you'll see me cycle through different outfits. and each time I put on the outfit, my player, the model of my player hands showing up in game changes, but I still hold the same 1911. This is where this is where the dynamic word comes from, because you're able to swap player hand models and still use the same weapon animation file. So you don't have to create separate weapon animations for each player hand model. You can just use one set of weapon animation files and one set of hand animation files, and you're able to combine them, and it'll work perfectly in game. So it doesn't work always perfectly, but most of the time it works perfectly fine. So I'll show you more examples of what dynamic and fixed hand method, like the changes between them. So let me open the GoldSphere OGSR engine real quick. I'm actually going. I actually forgot to do something real. Actually, no. We'll just pull it up. So in the last part, in part 1, I showed you how we unpacked all of the game data DB files and placed all of the contents from these DB files into the game data folder, and we're now able to explore the game data of Shadow of Chernobyl much easier. So for the fixed hand method, which is what Shadow of Chernobyl uses, it uses fixed hand method of implementing weapons. I'll show you where where weapon model files are located. They're in game data, they're in meshes, they're in weapons right here, and you'll see them all right here in different files and folders. So let's pick one. Let's pick what's a nice one? Let's pick 1911, and let's open up the OGF file, the HUD OGF file. I'll explain the difference between these two in part 3, but for now let's just open up this. In part 3. I apologize. Let's open up Colt 1911 HUD right here. And this is a separate program that allows me to open up OGF files. By default, you won't be able to open these up, but if you have like this program that I'm running, it's very useful of fiddling with OGF files. I'll in the description of this video, like I said, I'll probably paste a lot of the tools that I'm using with. I'll explain more about this in part 4 and part 3. So here's the. Oops, let me get this on screen. Let's look at viewport right here, and as you can see, this basically shows a 3D model of the weapon. And as you can see, my hands are directly baked into the weapon animation file. And if we go to, like, for example, a Desert Eagle, if we open up this, see how each weapon has its own hand models. And but for so this is fixed hand method right here. Let's show a Stalker mod that uses the dynamic method of implementing weapons. If we go to game data, meshes, dynamics, weapons, and we can see some of them are still left in here. Let's look at weapon Somapal. This is like the homemade gun. So if we open up this right here, as you can see, it has no hands. There is no hand models right here. And so no hands. I don't know the difference between these two right here. This is probably just a later model. We don't have to worry about that. Let me show you another. Is there another weapon that has... looks like there is... well, right there. Here's another weapon. As you can see, this one also has no hands, just a weapon model. So you can use the same. And for this one, the dynamic method, the main difference is that firearm animations and hand animations are now two separate animation files. Allows variety. So, for example, what I mean by firearm animations and hand animations are two separate files. I'll explain this in a later part, but to quickly summarize, if we look at the motion references in in the dynamic method. As you can see, it will reference a motion file, and that can also be found right here. So somapal HUD. This is just the file path. Dynamic weapons somapal and weapon somapal HUD right there. So this is like the file path of where you can find the weapon animations, and the hand animations are different. Those will be the hand animations can be found in usually weapon. In this case for this mod, all hand animations are probably shoved in this folder right here, weapon hand animation right here. As you can see, a bunch of hand animations. So but this is different from like the fixed method of implementing weapons, where instead of it referencing a weapon animation file, fixed hands just include the animations within the weapon model file directly. So here are all the weapon animations. That's pretty cool. They actually both include the weapon animations and the hand animations. So all of these, I'm guessing, are tied to the animations related with the gun, and all of these are tied with relating to the animations with the hands. It's for this one right here. So you don't have to have separate files for this one right here. You can just shove them all into the weapon file, and it's much easier. For dynamic method, you'll usually see weapons referencing an animation file, like in this case. But with fixed hands, you'll mostly see like the motions or animations just shoved into the file right here. So same with this one, weapon animations and arm animations, I'm guessing. So that's basically it I wanted to show you in part 2. That's in the next part I'll be showing you different ways of like the different parts of how weapons work. I hope I'm not overcomplicating things. I kind of am. And I'll see you then. That's all I wanted to share with you guys. Take care. See ya. Hello everyone. In part 3, I'm going to be showing you, like I said in the video earlier, the different quote-unquote parts that make up an implemented weapon in whatever Stalker mod or game you're dealing with or trying to mod. So let me pull up an infographic I created for this. I do want to make a few notes before starting. Is that let's look over here. Note that what I'm showing right here are the typical ways mods / games I've worked with, Stalker mods / games that I've worked with typically function and or are laid out. If your Stalker mod might function slightly differently, and that's okay because all mods work slightly differently. Try to experiment and see what does and doesn't work when modding. Figuring out how a game works takes time. Another one down here, if this infographic or what I'm about to say looks complicated, don't worry. It's really not. I'm only showing you the tip of the iceberg. I'm kind of overcomplicating things too. It'll make a lot more sense when I show you the tutorials on adding weapons and if you try it out yourself. So as you can see, there are 2 different paths that I've created. Implemented the different parts of an implemented weapon using the fixed hand method of implemented weapons that I showed last video, and the different path right here for the dynamic method of implemented weapons. Let's look at fixed hand method first. And the game I'm working with that has fixed hand method weapons is Shadow of Chernobyl. So once we have everything unpacked in a game data folder, we're now able to more easily look at everything. And the first part right here is the weapon config file, or the heart of the weapon's implementation, and it's an LTX file format. If you look at this note right here, weapon config files are typically found in your game data config weapons path of your Stalker game / mod game files. So here are the game files, the game data folder, everything is unpacked like we showed in part 1. We we go to game data, config, go to the bottom weapons, and you'll see all the LTX files for your weapons, like AK-74, AK-74U, Beretta. A lot of the non-weapons are also listed as weapons in this game, such as binoculars, the bolt that you throw, uh, a lot of other stuff. So here they all are. So you can think of the weapon config files as the heart of where your game gathers all those weapons, animations, sounds, textures, different parameters, etc., and compiles them all to create a weapon in game. So as you can see, there's a lot of markers right here that go to different areas. Let's explore all these. So let's use the Colt 1911 as an example. Let's open the Colt 1911 LTX file. And I'll show you one thing first. Let's look at weapon parameters. This is pretty self-explanatory. Everything, like these are the weapon parameters, like cost, ammo limit, ammo current. You're able to change all these, and by changing them, they'll make the weapon act slightly different in game. Like for example, I think ammo underscore mag size. That's how many bullets are in a magazine. So if I change this to 100 right here, then and save the LTX file, when I load up Shadow of Chernobyl now, the Colt 1911 will have 100 rounds in its magazine, which is pretty unrealistic. Let's change back to 7. Another one is ammo limit. I'm not exactly sure what this parameter does, but I'm pretty sure this is the max amount of bullets you're able to carry. I'm not exactly sure. One thing right here, ammo class. These are the type of ammo that's able to be used in your weapon. And since the Colt 1911 shoots 45 ACP rounds, the ammo that it shoots is 45 ACP. So this is 45 ACP, and this is 45 ACP Hydroshock ammo in game. These are like these are the item IDs for the bullets right here. And another one is inventory name. This will go to a separate file that has all the inventory names for like weapons, items, etc. It pulls the item ID correlated with the description of the 1911, and it displays it in game. Another one is inventory weight. This is pretty self-explanatory too. This is how many kilograms the item weighs in game. In this case, it's only 1.1 kilograms. There's a lot of these parameters, and each Stalker game / mod may add parameters that you can't find in Shadow of Chernobyl or other X-Ray engine mods. But a lot of these are interchangeable with different engines in Stalker games and mods. One good resource to figure out what a lot of these parameters do, I'll show you in a second, is the Stalker Anomaly modding book that this graceful person has created. This is a very helpful website if you're looking for Stalker modding. If we go down to, where is it? And like weapon configuration parameters, ammo configuration parameters, so you can see a lot of the parameters. Let me just scroll down. There we go. Weapon parameters and inventory, icons, and you can see what it does, what they do right there. So description, section name and XML files, description, like this is a example value, parameter description. You can see them all right here. There's a lot of them. So if you ever want to figure out what these parameters do, then look at that website that I'll probably put in the description of this video. Or if I forget, you can just look at the URL in this video. It's not a very long URL, thankfully. So with that, that's what I wanted to cover with weapon parameters. The next part are sounds.ogg file format. These are the format that sounds are usually in. .ogg is an open source sound format, so you can have tons of programs that open OGG. One second. I apologize. I just had a slight interruption. So what I was about to say, sounds. You could find a lot of programs that open and you're able to configure .ogg files, such as VLC Media Player or Audacity. These are two, I think, that support .ogg file format. So if you want to create sounds or edit sounds, usually use these programs or just view them. Let's pull up this again. So you could find sounds. Look, you could find references to sounds in your weapon LTX file right here, weapon config file. If you scroll down, you'll see some of them right here. And a lot of the sounds that play correlate to different actions your guns can make in game. Like for example, if you draw the gun, the sound _draw, this will reference a certain sound file. Like for example, whenever you draw your Colt 1911 in game, it will reference this sound right here, weapons/fort draw. If you holster your weapon, it will reference the sound file, weapons/generic holster. If you shoot your weapon in game, it will reference this sound, Colt 1911 shoot, right here. If you reference sound _ empty, it will reference like when the pistol is empty and you try firing it, but it won't fire. And whenever you try to reload your weapon in game, it will reference the sound right here, PM reload. And this thing right here, the comma 0.8, that is basically the speed that the sound file plays at. So in this case, it plays at 80% speed. And you can denote what sounds play by having these parameters right here: sound _draw, sound _ holster, sound _ shoot, all these, and you can make different sounds. Play. You're able to find sounds in the game files by going to game data, going to sounds, and if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see weapons right here, and here are all the sounds. So if you look up pistol _ empty, that's the sound that played. We go to, I hope you guys hear that, fort draw. There we go. I'm just clicking on the sounds, playing them with VLC Media Player. And so that's that. If you want to change, for example, if you want to change the reload sound to be Akaban reload, if you want your Colt 1911 to sound like an AK reload, all you have to do is just change the file path of what sound is referenced. So for example, sound reload, you can just change this to Abacan _reload and save it. And now when you reload your Colt 1911 in game, it will play the Abacan reload sound. So that's pretty cool. Let's change that back in the Colt 1911. So that's what I wanted to talk about with sounds. And the two next things are a little bit complicated to explain, which are the weapon model overworld item.ogf file format and weapon model HUD.ogf file format. So let's look at that. You can usually find both of these files in game data, meshes, weapons, and here are all the models. Like for example, grenade. There's all your grenades, Kabosa, HPSA, and for the sake of this one, we are using Colt 1911, and here they are. So this, for example, Colt 1911, this one right here is the overworld item, right here, weapon model overworld item, and it's in .ogf file format, as you can see right here. And then one below it, weapon model. This is for the HUD, like when you're firing the weapon in game. This will be the one that you're looking at. Like for example, this is the model that will show if you like drop the weapon, it'll like appear as a gun on the ground. And if you try firing the weapon in game, this is the model that we'll be playing. And you can show this more. You can visually show this by opening both files with this OGF file opener. This is a separate program that you have to install. And as you can see, this is the HUD right here, and this is the overworld. If we go to viewport, which shows a 3D render of the model. You can see this one has no hands, and this one has hands model. And so like I said earlier, this is the model that will be shown to you when you put the Colt in your inventory and start shooting. This is the model that will be shown. And whenever you like right click on the weapon in the inventory and drop it on the floor, this is the model that will be shown. And this is important to denote because these are referenced in the config files. So let's look at that real quick. Leave them right here. If we go to the Colt 1911 weapon config file, you can see both of these models are referenced. For example, the top one right here. So the next thing we have to talk about is weapon IDs. So all weapon config files usually follow this format where they have a single weapon ID. This is the ID that correlates the weapon, the inventory weapon. And they have another ID right here that follows this name format, weapon underscore HUD, and this indicates like the weapon that you're firing in game. So here we go, and we can show this more by showing this right here, weapon Colt 1911. If we scroll down to the weapon, if you scroll down to the parameter that says visual, if I can find it, strap parameters right here, you can see it right here, weapons/Colt 1911, Colt 1911.ogf. This is for the overworld model right here, and this is just the path of where the model is being held, and it's being held in game data meshes weapons. Weapons right there, weapons, in the folder Colt 1911 right there, Colt 1911, and a file that's held within Colt 1911. This is the same way with Colt 1911 HUD. So that's an important parameter right here. This is the model of the gun that's being showed in game when you drop the weapon on the pistol. I'm just repeating myself. And it's also the HUD one right here, the HUD ID. Let's just call these item IDs. So this item ID, it references the Colt 1911 HUD right here. Weapons Colt 1911 HUD right here, .ogf. And the next important part is whenever you have an item ID, such as for a gun, such as the Colt 1911, and you have a correlating HUD ID, such as the Colt 1911 HUD, you have to link these two together. You have to link these two item IDs together, and you can do that by using this parameter right here for the overworld ID, and the parameter that's called HUD, if I can find it. Yep, right here. So as you can see, one of the parameters in weapon underscore Colt 1911, it references a HUD, and this references weapon underscore Colt 1911 underscore HUD, and that correlates to this thing right here. Right here, Colt 1911 HUD. So that's important to note. And so that's basically all I wanted to show. So the reason this is done, you could probably guess the reason why this is done, but if so, they want this to be done so you don't, for example, drop this gun on the floor and it just appears like that in game. That wouldn't be good. Another thing you can do is HUD right here. You can actually change this to whatever HUD you want. So for example, if you want the 1911 to show up as an MP5 in game when you put it in your inventory, you can quite honestly just put weapon underscore MP5 underscore HUD, save it, and whenever you equip a Colt 1911 in game, it will show up as an MP5, which is pretty strange. Let's not do that though. Let's go back to normal. So the next part is connected to these weapon model HUD. The weapon model HUD.ogf file format are three things. You have the weapon animations, which are also called motions. in Stalker mods and games, they're not really called animations. They're more referenced in game as motions. So I'm just going to call them motions. So hand motions included in the weapon model file typically, and you have weapon textures which are linked to the weapon model overworld HUD. I mean the HUD overworld model, and also the overworld model. Let's talk about textures first. Weapon textures. Both the overworld items and the HUD items link to weapon textures. So I'll show you what I mean by that. If we open up both of these OGF files right here, the first thing we see when opening them up are in the textures tab of this section right here are paths that tell where they're supposed to pull textures from. For example, the Colt 1911 HUD pulls the Colt texture that it uses from this file path right here, weapon/weapon Colt. You can find this file path by going to game data, going to textures, going to weapon right here. As you can see, this links weapon right here. And if you open that up, you can find all the textures for all the guns in this game. So let's search up weapon_Colt, and you can find it right here, weapon_Colt. With textures, you can usually find a few other related files, such as bump maps right here. Bump maps basically give the weapon texture depth, so lighting can bounce off the bumps and stuff in game. And don't worry about that. This looks like a cut version of a texture for the Colt. You have to worry about this. This one's important. So right here, weapon/Colt, you can find weapon/weapon upgrade. Let's search up weapon_upgrade. You can find it right here, weapon upgrade and the bump maps. And you can find AXRToolset in this folder right here, in the texture folder. So let's do it again. Game data, textures, ACT, and you can find it. You can find this texture in here. The same one with the overworld weapon. It also calls textures that it uses. For example, weapon_Colt that I just showed a second ago, and the weapon upgrade that I showed a second ago too. And so textures for these models are linked in the game. Basically, the file paths for weapon textures are linked within the weapon model files, and these texture paths reference textures that are located in the texture folder. So that's pretty self-explanatory. If your gun shows up without having textures in game, one possible problem is that your texture path is incorrect. Like, for example, it's accidentally WP, so it tries to find a folder called WP, and it can't find anything, so it just shows up as a missing texture in game. So just make sure your texture paths are all good. And the shader name, there are different. I'm not too familiar with shader names, but I may make this in a future video. But to quickly summarize, I think the lighting engine. If you change the shader names, the lighting affects the texture slightly differently. Like I said, I'm not too familiar with this, so I'm not going to bother explaining that too much. So that's weapon textures. Let's go on to the next one right here. Let's go on to the next one right here, which are only related to the weapon HUD model, which are the hand animations or motions are typically included within the weapon model HUD file, and weapon animations included in the weapon model HUD file typically. So what I mean by that is that weapons have two ways of referencing their weapons using the fixed hand method usually have two ways of referencing firearm animations, and that's using motion references, which in this tab right here, motion refs, You basically put in a file path of where a separate weapon animation file is stored, or you could have the motions or the animations just baked into the weapon model file itself. In the case for this fixed hand method weapon, the 1911, the motions are just baked into the weapon model, and you can see these motions in the weapon config file by scrolling to the bottom. For example, the weapon underscore Colt 1911. You can have different parameters that can denote what animation is which. So, for example, if the animation that shows the gun reloading, which is animation reload, you want to do animation this parameter right here, anim reload. This pulls the motion reload underscore full from the motions section of your weapon HUD OGF file. So right here on reload full, you can see it right here, reload full. Reload empty is when you fired all of the bullets in your magazine, so you have 0 bullets, there's not one in the chamber. This references the motion reload. You could find it right here. 10 reload. The weapon parameter and animation shoot. This is the animation that plays when you shoot your weapon, and this references the motion shoot, which is shown right here. You get the point. You have to create a lot depending on what type of weapon you're using, you may have to create more or less animations to show, and that's basically all I want to tell. I don't know if the game crashes if your game will definitely crash if, for example, if you put it as idle sprint and it cannot find a motion. That's called idle sprint, so the game just explodes, it crashes. And so if you delete the animation just as that, I don't know if your game will crash or not, and you may have to experiment that with yourself. I don't think it will, but let's continue. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is hand animations or motions included in the weapon model file. Typically, for the case the fixed hand method, there technically isn't any hand animations because it's just one big animation. Like, for example, the animation shoot right here, it just moves the arm with it in the animation. I'm not exactly sure what all of these animations are right here. 10 to 23. These are probably early animations that they scrapped, and these are the final animations that are used in game right here. It doesn't really matter, but like I said, there really isn't any hand animations. And this is much different from the dynamic method right here that does have its own separate hand animation files right here, hand animations, which is a separate file. So this is basically it for all the different parts of the fixed hand method weapons. In the next part, I'll be showing you the dynamic method, and then after that, I'll be showing you some. That's another part. So we're done with fixed hand methods. We're done with fixed hand method weapons. Now let's move on to dynamic method weapons. And to show this, I'll be using an OGSR engine mod right here, which is Gold Sphere OGSR Unpacked. And so let's get to that. 1 second. All right, let's talk about dynamic method of how weapons are implemented. And so, just as with fixed hand methods, the heart of dynamic weapons lies in the weapon config file, heart of weapons implementation. But the layout or the different parts of it are slightly differently. So let's look at the OGSR. This is an OGSR engine mod, which is called STALKER Gold Sphere OGSR. And I unpacked everything from the DB files compared to like this one right here. All the DB files are unpacked and put into a game data folder, and it still runs. So let's look at it. So in game data, config. So for dynamic methods, you could usually find weapon config files in the same location, which is good. Game data, config, weapons, and you can find them right here. So let's look at the same. Let's look at this. Let's look at another Colt 1911 config file. So this weapon is used in game. Colt 1911 as well. So we can compare the two. So let's look at the first thing, which is sounds right here. Sounds. These basically are implemented identically. So sound underscore close, weapons / Colt close. We can go there. Go to game data, sounds, weapons, Colt right here. And here are all the sounds right here, just located right here. All these parameters reference the sounds right here. So for example, if you reload the gun in game, it will play this sound right here from weapons / Colt reload. It'll play this sound. There we go. It's basically identical as I explained in the fixed hand method, so let's move on. Weapon parameters are exactly the same as well. These are all the different parameters, such as inventory name short. For the case of this mod right here, Gold Sphere OGSR, I think the OGSR engine has included more weapon parameters that it's included. So like some of these, for example, might be this right here, aim HUD position right here. I don't know if this is in Shadow of Chernobyl's weapon parameter like list. So I'm not going to explain too much about that. You could find these parameters as well in the anomaly modding handbook that I showed in the fixed hand method when showing off weapon parameters. So it's basically the same like I explained in the fixed hand method. So let's move on. The next part I want to talk about is weapon model overworld item.ogf file format. It's also kind of identical to fixed hand methods. You could find these for example, the Colt 1911 in game data, meshes, dynamics, weapons, and you can find them all right here. Let's go to weapon Colt 1911, and you can ignore all of these for now and just focus on Colt 1911 and Colt 1911 HUD. I'm pretty sure all of these files right here are just leftovers from during development, so just forget about them. This is the overworld model file, and this is the HUD model file right here. So let's open them up. Weapon textures, like I showed right here. Weapon textures that are linked to the weapon model HUD and the weapon overworld model are the exact same right here. These just are the paths of where textures are called. Exact same way in fixed hand method, so I'm not going to talk about that much right here. What I do want to talk about is what's different are now weapon animation files and hand animation files are now separate. If we remember from the fixed hand method, there were the motions or animations for the weapon were included within the weapon model file right here. But in the case of dynamic methods, that's not always the case. For example, this right here. If we go to motions right here, as you can see, there are no motions. What they usually do instead is that they reference an animation file. So for the case of this right here, motion references. If we go to the HUD one right here, it will reference an animation file that has all the gun animations. And for this one right here, it's in dynamics, weapons, weapon underscore Colt 1911, and weapon underscore Colt 1911 underscore HUD underscore animation. And we could find that file right here. Weapon underscore Colt 1911 underscore HUD underscore animation right here. This OMF file right here contains all of the guns animations, and it references it right here. That's basically it. And now hand animations work slightly differently. If we look over here, now hand animations are also now in a separate file. If we open up the viewport of this, As you can see, in the weapon HUD model, it no longer has a fixed hand animations included with it. These are now in a separate file. So let's show you that. And these are not connected with the weapon model file. These are not connected with the weapon HUD model file at all. They're actually called in a different file. So for example, they're actually connected with a weapon config. So if we scroll down, you can see all the animations that show. Here are all the animation parameters or weapon parameters. So for example, if you're idle, if you're standing still in game with a weapon it will play this parameter right here. If you're standing still in game with a weapon equipped and you used all your ammunition and the slide is open, it will play this animation right here. When you reload the gun, it will play this animation right here, Colt 1911 reload. When you shot all of the bullets in your Colt 1911 and you reload with the slide open, and you have to put one in the chamber, you reload with reload empty. Pretty self-explanatory. You'll have this method used now, and like for example, this right here, Colt 1911 idle underscore animation. This is the hand animation that is called, and this one right here, comma Colt 1911 open. This is the weapon animation. So I'll show you what I mean right here. If we look at the HUD. Let's close this. If we look at the motion right here, it will call. If we look at the Colt 1911 HUD model file, go to motion references, it will call this animation file right here. Let's open that up. This is another program that is used that's very useful. I can't show it all on screen, but as you can see right here, for the case of Colt 1911 opened right here, it only calls this right here. So Colt 1911 opened. You can see it right here. Colt 1911 opened is the first weapon animation, and Colt 1911 idle aim is not shown in here. So where is it held? Where is this hand animation held? So this is pretty weird. But if you're looking for where a certain hand animation is located, so you may be wondering where the hell is this animation being held? Well, you can find that out yourself by using this program called Notepad++ and going to search, find in files. Let's put in this Colt 1911 idle aim, and we can find the file that this is. Oops. I did something wrong. If we go to game data dynamics and input this file path right here and press find all, it will search this whole directory for this string right here, Colt 1911 idle aim. And as you can see, there are two instances where this where the string is found. And look at that. So it's apparently held in the file weapon underscore hand underscore Colt 1911 underscore HUD underscore animation.omf. So let's look there. Weapons Colt, past it, Colt 1911, and it's held, oops, in this thing right here. Yep, see, weapon underscore hand, these are the hand animations. So the reason I did that whole thing is sometimes for some weapons, the hand animations can be held in a totally different file for some reason. So so make sure to do that if you need to find hand animations. But we got it right here. Let's close this. And here are two .omf files that we pulled up. This .omf file, the Colt 1911 HUD animation. This is for weapon animations, and this is for hand animations. You can tell the two apart by using this editor and going to Tools, go to Show Bone Parts, and you can see all these bones right here. The bip, finger, 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 hand, hand, hand. And if we go to this one right here, show bone parts. You can see a lot of these bones right here. Don't worry about these too much. All these bones are more related to Blender and like 3D animating than anything, so don't worry about them. But I'm just showing you the tip of the iceberg, like I said. I'm just repeating myself. Whatever. Let's continue. So that's where hand animations are separate from, and like I said, let me just pull these up again. I don't know why I closed them. In the case of the LTX file right here, for showing you the animation of idle from animation idle underscore aim underscore empty. The first one is the hand animation right here, Colt 1911 idle aim. Right here, Colt 1911 idle aim. And the second one right here is the weapon animation motion, located right here. Colt 1911 opened. Oh god, where? Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. So that's basically all I wanted to show with you. Basically, the main difference between dynamic and fixed method is that hand animations and weapon animations are usually in 2 different files. So that's basically it. Like you're probably I'm probably overcomplicating things, and if I am, I apologize. But it's much easier to figure. It's very easy. It's definitely not as complicated as it looks. I'm kind of just over explaining things in a lot of time. So now that we're done with part 3, let's go into part 4, which I show you all of these different programs that I used that are used to fiddle around with all this, with all these file types such as OMF, OGF, etc. All right, that's it. See you guys. See you in part 4. Hello everyone, and this is part 4, which I show you the file formats typically used when implementing weapons and the tools needed to open them. I probably should have done this part before part 3, but unfortunately it's over now, so let's just continue. The first tool that I think everyone should download is any good notepad, any good alternative to just a regular notepad. Have you ever tried opening like anything with just notepad? Open with notepad, like this is fine, but it's not. It could be a lot better. Use any notepad alternative. The one I use is Notepad++, and I think I recommend using this as for a beginner because it's very easy to. It's very beginner friendly, and it has a pretty powerful tool in it that has a pretty powerful tool by the name of the search and find in files. This is a godsend. So I'm going to be showing you an example of like this what find in files thing can be used for. Like for example, let's say I just added a weapon into my favorite mod and I want to try to get up and running. So let's start a game and let's see it. Let's load into a game. There we go. Let's try accessing our new weapon via spawn menu that's thankfully included in this mod that I'm playing. Let's try, where is it? You missed it. Colt 1911. It's actually not a new weapon in this mod. Let's equip it. And it's supposed to crash. That is not good. 1 second. Let's try this again. I load the weapon in, which is the Colt 1911. I put it into my backpack and try equipping it. And the game crashed. So that's not good. I crashed the desktop. And so you can see what went wrong with your potential weapon implementation by going to app data, logs, opening your log, and let's scroll down to what caused the game to crash. So right here, player HUD motion container load, motion Colt 1911 reload, animation reload is not found with section weapon Colt 1911 HUD. So where did this go? So let's use, for example, this string right here. You probably already correctly guessed about where this mistake came from. But if you want to, like a potential use for Notepad is looking up potential strings that may cause problems, such as this one right here. Let's copy it. Let's go to search, find in files. Let's go to let's input the directory of what you want to search, and you want to find this string right here. Search mode normal. Let's find all. It's chugging along. Looks like we found some hits. And if we scroll down, we can maybe find what happened. Oh, look right there. Look at that. We found it. Colt 1911 reload. It's an incomplete string, so let's add the D. And when we boot up the game, it's now completely fine. So that whole long, arduous, completely useless demonstration, which I showed you, is possibly a demonstration that you may use when bug fixing and the magical find in files feature. So if you want this cool little feature, download Notepad++. It has honestly been the most useful tool for modding that I've had. So the next ones I want to talk about are the DB Unpackers and AXRToolset. So these two right here, I use to unpack games. So like I showed you in part 1, these are the tools that allow you to unpack DB files. So if we open them up, you can see that in part 1 I showed unpacking DB files using this thing right here, using this converter right here, the ultimate DB converter. In this part, I guess I'll be showing you AXRToolset. And for this demonstration, let's try unpacking, not these, but let's try unpacking, let's just delete all this real quick. You can see why games compress stuff in the DB files or database files, so that you don't have to deal with all that crap. So let's try unpacking, for example, this mod right here, Goldsphere OGSR. This STALKER mod has all these DB files, and so you want to unpack them. So you can copy them, put them all into an input folder. The input folder I have is folder 5. And the output folder I usually have is folder 6. So let's try AXRToolset right here. Let's open this toolset, go to Launcher. Let's go to DB Tool. And this AXRToolset is very powerful. It can do a lot more than just look at just unpack stuff. You can have, it's a converter which converts OGF to object, OMF to SKLs, all this stuff. It's very useful. This is more SKLs and OMFs are more related to 3D animating, such as Blender with the Pavel Blend add-on I showed in another video, so I don't have to worry about that right now. Like I said multiple times in this video, I'm kind of just showing you the tip of the iceberg. So let's try DB Tool right here. Let's open it up. Let's try unpacking right here. So we have input path, folder 5. That has all the DB files right here. And for the output folder, let's do DB output folder. Output path is folder 6 right here. And let's this is the type of when unpacking, you want to try XDB and 2947RU, because these are two different ways that DB files are compressed. So let's try 2947RU. and you can see if it's working, if it's successfully unpacking the stuff. Yep, there you go. Starting to unpack. And there you go. Everything is unpacked. There we go. DB tool. And there you go. It's working. So that's that. That's the AXRToolset. It's a very powerful tool. I recommend using it. I'll put a link in the description for the tool. So let's continue. The ones that are when dealing with weapons, you may encounter OMF and OGF files. So let's look at this right here. Gold Sphere OGSR unpacked. So let's go to meshes, meshes, dynamics, weapons, weapon, Colt 1911. Where is it? Let's just copy this over here, paste it. If we're looking at like a weapon folder that has a bunch of OGF files right here, using this program right here, the OGF Editor, you can open these OGF files right here. So let's open it up. OGF Tool, File, Load, and you can give what you want open. Sorry, weapon underscore Colt. Look at this, Colt 1911 OGF. You can open it up. You can load, save as, export as a different one. Look at all that. Pretty cool. Another one. If you really, you can also make OGF files open by default using this program by going to Properties and making the default like open with like, and selecting this OGF Editor right here, and it will open it up by default like I do. Next one I want to talk about is the OMF Editor. This deals with hand animations and weapon animations, and it works basically the same way. You open it up, you load, and you're able to see them both. Or you can just make them open by default using this program right here, like I did. So that's basically all the tools I wanted to show with you. I don't think there's, is there any more that the only other tool that I recommend you installing is Pavel Blend X-Ray add-on, which I have another separate video. This is an add-on for Blender. So make sure to install that. That add-on is also incredibly important. It is the backbone for a lot of people. I cannot even imagine what STALKER modders had to do before a lot of these tools have existed. Respect the pioneers. So that's basically it for part 4. In part 5, I'll be showing you a rough tutorial of implementing weapons into Shadow of Chernobyl in part 5, and I'll show you a tutorial for implementing a weapon in Gold Sphere OGSR, which runs on a dynamic method of implementing weapons. So let's begin. See ya. Hello everyone. In part 5 of this video, I'll be finally just showing you a rough tutorial of porting or implementing a weapon into STALKER Shadow of Chernobyl using this method right here. We'll be porting weapon that uses the fixed hand method of weapon implementation into Shadow of Chernobyl. So let's look at the weapon that we're going to be porting. 1 second. So the mod I'm playing is STALKER Gold Sphere Completion, and in this mod you may encounter a cool weapon like the Mac 10. Like, look at this cool thing.
Какой смысл?
Mac 10. Look how cool this weapon is.
Какой смысл?
Choose 45 ACP. 1 second. I apologize, I accidentally spawned the wrong ammo type for this weapon, but look at this. This weapon that I'm showing right here uses the fixed hand method of weapon implementation, and we can try to port it over to Stalker Shadow Chernobyl. So let's try just that. So I'm going to be showing you how to get all the weapons assets, stuff like that, and I'll be showing you how to port it. So let's go. Alright, I'm back. Sorry, I apologize. Here we are. So we're back at the desktop, and let's try to port over the Mac 10 that I just showed into Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl. So let's try to strip the game of assets first. So the first thing you want to do is you want to pull open the mod. So here is Gold Sphere Completion. This is the mod that I used. And the next part is you want to unpack everything in the DB files. This is the completely vanilla Gold Sphere. So here it is in this folder. Let's delete all these real quick. Let's delete all this real quick into folder 6. Don't worry about these. I just forgot to clear them from another section of this video. Look how many items are in there. Holy moly. There we go. So let's now unpack. Oops. So now let's unpack everything. So here are all the DB files, and let's unpack all the DB files. Into another folder, and we're able to get the game's assets that way. So I unpacked everything. I just copied it over. Let's use AXRToolset now. AXRToolset. Let's launch it. Go to DB tool right here. Input. This is for the unpack right here. Select the input path, which is folder 5. It's right here, folder 5. This has all the DB files that we just pasted into it. And let's select 2947RU, which is the format that it uses, and let's press execute. And it's going to start unpacking. You may take a little while, so I'm going to skip back until it's done unpacking. 1 second. Alright, it's done unpacking. We can close this out. And here are all the game's assets dumped into folder 6 right here. Here they all are. So let's try to extract everything about the Mac 10 into a separate folder. We will call Mac 10 assets. Now the first thing we should probably look for is the weapon config file, so we have a reference to create our own weapon configuration file. So let's go to config, weapons. Let's look for Mac 10. Should be in here somewhere. It's probably JW. There it is, JW Mac 10. Let's copy it, put it over to our Mac 10 assets folder. Next thing we should probably do is look for the weapon models. And these can be found in meshes, weapons, and Mac 10. There we go. Let's copy this over, paste it into here. And this both contains the HUD OGF file and the overworld OGF file. There we go. Now let's try to get all the textures from this. Looks like they both share it, so let's just focus on the Mac 10 HUD. Let's try to look for it. Let's go to, let's try to get all the textures. So weapon, silencer, weapon underscore 9mm silencer should be in textures. Weapon at the bottom. Should be in silencer right here, this folder, and weapon on 9mm silencer. Let's copy it over, paste it into another one called Mac 10 textures. And let's also create Mac 10 sounds. There we go. Let's paste this right here. Let's go to the next one, Mac 10 lower. I think we can just copy this whole folder over. Let's just copy everything from here. There we go. Has Mac 10 upper, Mac 10 lower, Mac 10 grip. No. Mac 10 mag is in there. Now act to ARM Pachatka. Let's look for that. This should be an act folder in the textures folder. Let's go scroll to the top. There it is, act. Act underscore ARM underscore Pachatka. And you may find, for example, this one right here, you may find a few different ones, but try to find, you may find like other models have the same name, but with a slight difference, such as like underscore black. Let's just try to find act to ARM Pachatka. Copy this over. We want to try to find them all with so let's do bump. These look like the three ones right here. You have the two bump map folders and you have the texture folder. These look, the rest of them just look like miscellaneous. So let's copy them over, paste them into here. Anything else? Mac 10 grip we have right there. Mac 10 upper we have right there. And it looks like we have all the textures related to the Mac 10. So we can continue. The next part is you want to try to get all the sounds from it. So let's do that. Let's go to a good way of trying to find all the sounds is by opening the config folder that you got from it. And if you scroll down to sounds, you could find all the sounds you want to try to find. So weapons USB draw. Let's try to find that. They're in sounds, weapons, right there. Let's try to find them all. First one is the USB draw. Next one is generic holster. There we go. A Mac 10 shoot. There it is. Gen empty. Next one's Mac reload. Copy it over. Next one's generic close. And the last one is T Ventura shot. I'm actually not going to copy this one because I don't want to mess with suppressors and Shadow of Chernobyl, so let's just get rid of that. Let's not copy that one over. And it looks like we're all ready to port the weapon over. Well, there are a few things that we can port over, such as there are a few things that are hard to port over, such as inventory name, that's related to another file. Inventory grid, I don't think we have to worry about too much. Let's just try to port the weapon over in its most basic configuration with it appearing on screen, and we have a new weapon. So I think we have everything to implement it in its most rudimentary form. So let's start. Let's get rid of this for now. Close out of this, and let's close out of everything, and let's focus on Shadow of Chernobyl. So when creating a new weapon, the heart of it is the weapon config file. So let's go to game data, config, weapons, and if you scroll to the bottom right, there's actually already a weapon config file called Mac 10 because the Mac 10 is actually a cut weapon in this game. It wasn't fully implemented. So in this case, let's create a weapon called the M10. And so the first thing when I'm implementing a weapon in its most rudimentary form is I want to have a base or an LTX file to act as a base of implementing a weapon. So what's another SMG in the game? So I'm trying to port over an SMG. So let's try to find SMG config file that we can work off of as a base. And a good one is the MP5. So let's make a copy of the MP5. Let's copy, paste it in here. We have MP5 copy. let's change it to WM10. Let's do that. So let's open it up. So the next thing we have to do is we have to place everything where it's supposed to go. So let's place the Mac10 folder in here first. Let's go to game data. Let's go to meshes. Let's go to weapons, and let's plop the Mac10 in here. There we go. It's in there. Next thing you want to do is you want to change all these OGF files to match the new destination that the textures will be in. So let's change it to Mac10 textures right here. Let's change the texture path to Mac10 textures. Look like that's all done. Let's save it by pressing Control Save, or you can just save it right there. Let's open Mac10 HUD next. Let's do the same right here to change the file path. There we go. And the reason I did that is we're going to place the Mac10 textures folder in this destination, and the weapon Mac10 textures, weapon 9mm silencer right here, weapon 9mm silencer. So we're going to place this in this path right here in this destination. So let's do that. We're going to go to textures, weapon, and just pop over to let's just plop this weapon textures file into here. There we go. And let's do the sounds next. Let's pop over the go to sounds, weapons, and you want to place this folder right here. Remember that it's in a folder, all the sounds. You need to remember that for later. And once we placed everything here, we can now focus on the weapon config file. So let's go back to there. M10. And so we're using the MP5 as a base. And the first thing you want to do is create new item IDs for this weapon. So let's just create a weapon M10, save it, scroll down. Where is the M10 HUD? And the next thing you want to do is, since we changed the name to weapon M10 HUD, you want to change the parameter. You want to change the visual parameters to make it reference the new Mac10, the Mac10 folder that we implemented. So let's change this to weapons Mac10, and it's now weapon Mac10 HUD. Let me just, yep, see Mac10 HUD right there, .ogf. And next, let's do it up here. Visual Mac10 and weapon Mac10.ogf. And once you do that, you want to change the HUD for the M10 right here. Let's go down to HUD, which is right here, and you want to change this to weapon M10 HUD. If you leave this as MP5 HUD, it'll just reference the MP5 HUD file, and when you try spawning in the weapon, it'll look like an MP5, and that's not what we want. So change this to M10 HUD. And once we're done with that, the next thing I'd recommend doing is whenever you're implementing a weapon for the first time, I'd recommend making all these add-ons to 0. So I'm gonna quickly 0. If you put this to 0, for example, you cannot attach a silencer to it. If you change this to 1, the silencer will come on the weapon by default. This is kind of like the VSS Ventores. And if you change it to 2, that means there is an attachable suppressor that you can attach to this weapon. And you can make this silencer, you can denote what silencer is able to be attached to this with this section right here, silencer name. But we don't have a suppressor for this Mac 10. Well, we kind of do, but I don't want to mess with that. I don't really want to mess with that implementation right now. So let's just change this to 0. There we go. Let's save it. Let me put on some chapstick real quick because my kinker sores are flaring up. There we go. Next thing we want to do is we want to implement the sounds. And if you remember that we put the sounds in, the game data, sounds, weapons, Mac 10 sounds. So let's change that. So let's pull up the original config file for the Mac 10 that we got in GoldSphere right here. Let's pull it up. And let's just copy the sounds over. So sound draw, let's copy this over. And let's change it to, it says Mac 10 sounds. There we go, USP draw 0.5. Now we gotta look for the holster. There we go. Holster, let's look for shoot. There we go. Empty, sound empty. And sound reload. There we go. So let's make sure to add this whole new line to it because we put it in a new folder, Mac 10 sounds. And like I said, all these numbers right here are basically the sound, how fast the sound is playing in game. For example, the sound will be playing at half speed. This will be playing at 90% speed. You get the thing. You get the deal. Let's save it. We don't have to implement these because I don't know if Shadow Chernobyl has the sound parameter, but let's not deal with it right now. Excuse me. So this is the section. It's in weapons folder, Mac 10 sounds, and the sound. There we go. Now let's implement animations, and we can do that by going to the original config file, and we can copy over the names of all the animations. So the first one we're trying to deal with is anim idle. So let's anim idle. Let's copy this over. Now we want to do anim idle aim. Copy it over. Paste it. Anim reload. Oops. Anim draw. Right there. Copy it. Paste it over. Anim holster. Now go to anim shoot. Where's anim shoot? Right here. Anim idle sprint. Right there. And we just ported over the animations, basically. And the last thing I want to do for this rudimentary weapon implementation is by changing this value right here, zoom offset. Basically, this parameter is responsible for when you aim the gun. This basically this parameter denotes of where the position the weapon will be on the screen when you're aiming down the weapon. So let's change it. It's right here. change it to that. And let's also make it these equal 0. So zoom rotate X rotates it on the X axis. Let's put that to 0. And rotate Y. Let's put that to Y. And that's basically, that should be it basically for it. If we have any crashes, we'll look at the crash log, see what happened, and we'll go from there. So let's save it. And it's already inside the Shadow of Chernobyl folder. And the last thing I want to do is add a spawner into this Shadow of Chernobyl game, because we need a way to spawn the weapon. So let me do that real quick. Let me go get the spawner. 1 second. All right, there we go. Here's a simple Shadow of Chernobyl item spawner which all of the code is stolen from OGSE. So this is not my code. Let's put it right here. As you can see, there are two files in this folder right here. The game data for scripts AMKS, and you can see it right here, created by the OGSE team. And this basically adds their item spawner, and there's UI main menu, which so let's install this real quick, and I'll tell you what it means. So let's just put this let's just copy this game data folder, go to the end, press Control V. It'll have there will ought to be a file called that. You want to replace the file, and we're good. So how we're able to change the item spawner by going to scripts, going to UI main menu. Where is it? UI main menu. There. UI main menu. Open that up, and you want to scroll to the bottom right here until you see this thing right here. This is a part of the spawner. AMKS spawn item in inventory, weapon to FN2000. It spawns at FN2000 by default, but we're able to make it change by implementing, changing this, what's in the parentheses right here. So let's change it to weapon M10. So let's copy this and paste it in there. And with that, the Mac 10 should spawn in inventory when we open up the spawn menu and press Q. It should spawn this in our inventory. So let's go try it out. So everything should be ready to go. Let's close out of that. So let's load up Shadow of Chernobyl. Let's launch the game. Let's play. We may have to create a new game, actually. We'll see. I'm actually just going to create a new game, so we don't have any issues. Come on, just load so I can create a new game. New game, novice. Let's creating a new game. Wait for Sidorovich to...
So, marked one, I saved you. And I'm not going to pretend I did it to win favors upstairs. You do some jobs for me, and we're even. Besides, keeping you busy might be a good way to deal with your amnesia. And I'll see what I can find out about your problem. I don't give a shit why you want to find this Strelec guy. I mind my own business. The choice is yours. Got a job. Good hunting, Stalker.
Выдаю шутку юмора. Нас от зоны, то ли зону от нас охраняют. Допрашивает как-то...
You press escape, press Q, and it looks like the game crashed. Let's see what went wrong. So let's go to app data, logs, human x-ray. What went wrong? Can't find section weapon M10. Oh, yes, I forgot to do something. This is exactly why. So let's, I forgot to do one more thing. Let's go to game data. Let's go to config. Let's go to weapons. And we have to, this is what I forgot to do. Once you have your weapon implemented, M10 right here, you want to scroll to the bottom to this weapons LTX file. And you'll see this section that says include and then the name of it. And what we want to do is copy this, make, paste, and now change it to weapon m10.ltx. There we go. Let's save it. And now we can start up Shadow of Chernobyl. Let's see if it works.
So, Marked One, I saved you, and I'm not going to pretend I did it to win favors upstairs. You do some jobs for me, and we're even. Besides, keeping you busy might be a good way to deal with your amnesia. And I'll see what I can find out about your problem. I don't give a shit why you want to find this Strelec guy. I mind my own business. If you want to kill him, the choice is yours. Got a Good hunting, Stalker.
Alright, we are free, so let's try it again.
Come over here.
Escape, and press Q.
We need to talk.
Didn't crash this time, and now we have the Mac 10. It'll show up in game as Viper 5, but you can change the inventory icon and the name. It'll have everything that the MP5 has, like the description, you'll have the icon, the name, the price. You have to change this all by yourself in different files, but if we equip it,
Оружие убрал. Оружие убрал. Ты ствол-то убери. Оружие убрал.
that's pretty concerning. For some odd reason,
как
the
медом
iron sights are
помазал.
messed up.
По душе
I'm not sure why the iron sights are messed up. That is pretty strange. I'm not sure why they're messed up. Let me go check that real quick. Be right back. I think I'll exit before I... Yep. Alright, I found the cause behind why the weapon was off in game. If you look at our M10 right here, and we look at the Mac 10, or the original Mac 10 config folder right here, I forgot to include one piece of one parameter, which is the position. So if you look at this parameter right here, position 0, negative 0.2, 0.1. We'll look at the position on this one right here. Position 0, 0, 0. Let's change that. There we go. Let's save it. And now let's boot up Shadow of Chernobyl again, and let's see if it worked. 1 second. Alright, I think I got it working.
Come over here. We need to talk.
Вылез тихо из палатки, надел кожаную
Escape and Q.
перчатку и полез к соседям в палатку. Полез, значит, и попрошайничает жалостно. Водички, водички попить. А тут из палатки навстречу ему высовывается рука и за горло его цап.
And look at
И
that.
такой
It's now
щиплый
alive.
голос. Моя водичка
As you can see,
зачем
the
нужна?
place that the fireball is of when you're firing.
А колбасу
It's slightly above the weapon, and you have to change that in the weapon parameter fire point. 1 second. Again. There we go. You're able to change where the fireball it goes to. You're able to change where the fireball is, and this point right here, fire point 0.1. If we change this to match the JW Mac 10 right here, which has a fire point of 0 right here. If we change that, then the fireball should line up in game, but you have to restart your game for that to happen, for the change to occur. So I guess that's basically it. We got the Shut up. That's basically it. We got the weapon to we got the weapon in. And we can now go kill people with it.
Так, музыкальная пауза.
Прикрой меня!
That is basically it for this small but little rudimentary tutorial for adding weapons in the for adding fixed hand method weapons. And then in the next part, I'll be showing you how to implement a weapon that's using the dynamic method of implementing weapons right here. In another mod right here, we'll be porting a weapon over to Goldsphere OGSR that uses the dynamic method. I'll see you then. Take care. Hello everyone, and in the sixth and hopefully final part of this video, I'm going to be showing you a rough tutorial of porting / implementing a weapon into a Stalker mod running on the OGSR engine through the second way, which is the dynamic method weapon of implementation. I'll just remind you right here, the dynamic method will be implementing a weapon that uses this method. So let's begin. The OGSR engine mod in question is Goldsphere OGSR. Pretty obvious about my channel, obviously. So the weapon we're going to be porting is the Stalker Anomaly mod right here. So the Mac 10 Stalker Anomaly mod. It's off this URL right here. Mod DB Stalker Anomaly DLTX Mac 10. Here it is. Really cool weapon, and we're going to be attempting to the best of our abilities to port this over to Goldsphere OGSR. So let's begin. So I do want to keep this open to point out some stuff while we're porting it over. So let's unpack this no one more. Let's pull it over here. Let's unpack the file. Let's put it over here, and we're just going to put this over here for now. So the first thing I want to do is you want to get a layout of how your OGSR mod works. So let's compare some things real quick, because I want to mention a point. Remember this point right here that I said in part 3 about what I'm showing you are the typical ways mods / games, Stalker mods / games that I've worked with are typically function and or laid out. Your Stalker mod might function slightly differently, and that's okay. Try to experiment and see what does and doesn't work when modding, and figuring out how the game works takes time. So we can see that right here. If we open up the Mac 10 mod, which this mod runs on the Anomaly engine, and we open up this folder right here for Goldsphere that runs on the OGSR engine, we can see a few slight differences. This is the game data folder. Let's go to game data folder. You can see that in the meshes folder right here, it's not exactly like this Anomaly mod isn't exactly like the OGSR mod. It has different files in different locations. So, for example, in the dynamics folder, it works kind of the same way as this one right here. Dynamics, weapons, weapon Mac 10. And if we open that up, it only houses the Mac 10 world, but in this OGSR engine mod, for example, if you open up this 1911, it has the overworld right here, and the HUD model right here. And if we go to another folder, in the anomaly _weapons, you can see HUD animation, which houses the OMF file for this excuse me, Mac 10 weapon, and in weapon underscore Mac 10, here's the HUD file. So let's make all of this work right here. Let's make all of this work with our OGSR engine mod. So let's go do it. So the first thing I like to do is make a game data folder that houses everything. In this case right here, let's try to, you want to have, in this case, we want to do something similar to our last implementation in part 5. So Mac 10 sounds. Let's try Mac 10 textures. Let's try weapon underscore Mac 10, and anything else that's pretty much it. So let's compile everything. So let's get the textures first. Mac 10 textures. Let's go to textures, weapon, and we have everything right here. Let's put them, let's copy them all over into here. There we go. Let's get the sounds next. Sounds, weapons, Mac 10. So thankfully we really don't have to worry about this. Let's just get all this right here. Copy, Mac 10 sounds. There we go. Now let's pour everything into this weapon Mac 10 folder right here, and from the meshes folder. So let's go to the dynamics, weapons, weapon Mac 10. Let's copy over the overworld OGF file. I should probably black this out. I apologize. Right there. Let's get the anomaly weapons from weapon Mac 10. Here's the HUD file. And let's get the weapon animation OMF file. So these are the weapon animations. And we'll also stick the hand animations in here for the time being. So there we go. So we have everything. Next part is, let's just see if I missed anything. I don't think I did. Let's go to configs and see the config file used. Just get rid of this first. So let's actually just port this over for now. To be used as the reference. There we go. And once you have all the assets, we can now begin creating the mod. So let's create another folder that says Mac 10 Mac 10 game data. This is different from. Oops, I probably should rewrite this as Mac 10 assets, and this is Mac 10 Mac 10 game data, and this is Mac 10 assets. So let's begin. In Mac 10 game data, for example, we're just going to create a mod where we're able to easily just copy and paste a game data folder into the OGSR folder right here, and the mod will work hopefully. So let's begin. So the first thing we want to do is we want to implement the meshes. So let's do that. So let's go to meshes, dynamics, weapons, and let's put the weapon Mac 10 right here. Right here. One important thing you have to do is make sure that the path for the for the weapon animation file is correct. If we open up Mac 10 HUD, go to motion references right here. You want to make sure the path is correct. In this case, the path is incorrect, so we want to change it. In this case, it should be dynamics for right here. Hope I didn't spell that incorrectly. Weapons, weapon underscore Mac 10 right here. Dynamics weapons, weapon Mac 10, and the final one should be Mac 10 object. There we go. Let's save it. Now we can back out. we should probably do this for this as well. I don't know why I'm doing this. I meant to do this. Let's create game data meshes dynamics. Let's copy this. Let's delete and copy over this Mac 10 folder real quick, wherever I can find it. You're hidden. Let's just delete this for now. I want to work with this first. So there we go. Next part is we want to implement the... I already have that open. Next up, we want to implement the textures. So let's do that. Let's go to game data. Let's go to textures. Let's go to weapon right here. And this is where you want to put our weapon Mac 10 textures. So let's just copy that file path over. So game data, textures. Let's add this folder right here. Textures. Next is weapon. Weapon. And inside of weapon should be where we want to put our textures. So let's put them right here. And now we have to, once we have the textures in place, we now want to modify the path of where the textures are pulled from in the model. So what I mean by that is if we go back to let's open another folder of Mac 10 game data. If we go to meshes dynamics weapon Mac 10, you want to change the file path so it lines up with where the textures are held. So let's open Mac 10 HUD, and you can see it right here. The textures path for all these textures right here is in weapon, and it should be weapon Mac 10 textures. So let's do that. Mac 10 textures slash, and we can copy this over for all the textures in this thing. For example, copy, 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 paste, paste, oops, paste. There we go. Now let's do that for Mac 10 World as well. Paste, paste, paste. That's it. And we can now close out of that. And it's good. The OGF files now have their correct textures path for this texture folder right here. So that's nice. And we can move on to sounds, I guess. So let's check out how sounds work in the OGSR mod. If we go back to game data, sounds, weapons, and this is where the weapons are held. So let's do that. Game data, sounds. Let's add a new folder, sounds. Open that up. Next one is weapons. Let's do that. And now in this folder we can place our weapon sounds. So here we go. Copy, paste, and that is good. The last thing we want to do is implement the config file. So this is a little bit different. So let's look at the OGSR mod we have right here and pick out a base, an LTX base for our weapon. Oops. So a good whenever you're choosing an LTX file as like a base, whenever you're choosing like something to copy off of as a base, you want to pick a weapon that's similar in purpose. Like for example, we're trying to port over an SMG, which is the MAC-10. So let's choose an SMG as our base, so we can copy the LTX file off of. So let's use the Uzi right here. Let's make a copy, and let's put it right here, I guess. Weapon at Uzi. So let's also make a path for where the config file is held. So it's in game data, config, config, weapons, and this is where the LTX file is held. So let's put it in here. And we can now start modifying this LTX file to port or get our weapon all together. So let's open it up, and let's open up the LTX file that came with the MAC-10 mod originally, which is this one right here. So this one is this LTX file is what came with the anomaly mod initially. So we're able to use this to create the porting weapon. So let's create a new item ID for our weapon. I want to use M10 again. Weapon M10, and let's scroll to the bottom and change it to weapon M10 HUD. And let's also make the weapon M10 now reference the HUD version by going to HUD right here and changing it to weapon M10 HUD. And we can now change the visual of what appears in games for our weapons. So we can do that by changing the visual right here and right here for the HUD version. So let's do that. So visual, it's basically the same file path. Dynamics, weapons, weapon. We have it set as MAC-10, I believe. Yep. Weapon MAC-10, and inside here we have weapon MAC-10 underscore world.ogf. Let's do that for the one down here. Weapon MAC-10, weapon MAC-10 HUD right here. And now let's port over some of the miscellaneous weapon parameters. Some really important ones that you want in game are hands position, hands orientation, also the 16:9 type, item position, and aim HUD offset POS, aim HUD offset rotation, and the 16:9 versions of them. Another one you should keep in mind is fire point and shell point. You want to make sure that shell bone and fire bone are set to a bone that's included within the weapon. So as you can see in the weapon M10 HUD, it uses the weapon MAC-10 HUD.ogf. And if we open up this file right here, we can see the bones that are located within the weapon. So bone names. Here are all the bones in the weapon. And as you can see, there's no fire bone. There's no bone in this HUD model file that is called muzzle. So let's change that to weapon body, for example. Let's change it to weapon body. Basically, every weapon has a weapon underscore body bone. So if you don't know what bones are inside your weapon, weapon underscore body is a good place to start, because basically every weapon has a weapon underscore body bone. I'm pretty sure it has to be included for a stalker weapon to be usable. So just change it to weapon underscore body. If you don't do this, one way of diagnosing that this problem is occurring to you is if you try firing the weapon in game and the game suddenly lags like hell whenever you're firing the weapon. If that happens, that may be something related to shell bone or fire bone, so just make sure to change that. So let's change these parameters now. Let's change all these. If we go over to the mod system mac10.ltx, we can copy over everything from here. So hands orientation, let's change that. hands position, hands position 16 by 9. You usually find that these are identical with weapon position and orientation. Hand orientation and hands position. Yeah, I probably should have said this a second ago. Like I said, they're basically the same. 0.96, 0.96, negative 0.173319, negative 0.173319, and you get the point. They're basically the same most of the time. Item position and orientation, that's pretty important too. These are basically 0, 0 on both versions, so we don't have to change them. Aim underscore HUD underscore offset underscore POS. These are a pain in the ass parameters to manually change. I'll show you. In the future tutorial probably explain what these are, but let's just port them over for now. I don't want to explain too much about them. So aim underscore offset POS. Rotation. Pause 16 by 9, position 16 by 9, and a rotation 16 by 9. Oops, something went wrong. There we go. So the next part is, I guess we can start porting over the animations. So let's do that. So the first one is animation underscore show. So let's find that one in here. Underscore animation show right here. Animation underscore hide. We could find it right here. Oops. Animation underscore idle. Animation idle underscore sprint. I do want to mention something real quick. One difference between the OGSR engine and the Stalker Anomaly engine is that the Stalker Anomaly engine supports a feature where you're able to change the speed of weapon animations in game. This is denoted by like comma 1.05. This basically changes the speed at which the animations play. This is very useful, so you don't have to create separate animations. For example, like from moving, and you have moving underscore crouch, and so moving underscore crouch moves at 90% of the speed as the animation set from just moving. So the OGSR engine, which is the engine that we're working with, does not support this feature, so make sure to disable, make sure to delete any numbers after like the second thing right here. So the next one is idle underscore moving. Yep. There we go. Animation shots. Animation shots when aim, and this is another noteworthy parameter. I don't know if this parameter is exists on the Stalker Anomaly engine, but it's basically identical to the parameter called animation shots underscore aim. As you can see, they both have very similar naming formats. So Mac 10 underscore shoot underscore aim, and then shoot. And for shots when aim, you have Uzi underscore shoot underscore aim, and then comma shoot. So these, I'm guessing these are basically identical. They're just named different. So let's just copy this over. Shots aim. Make sure not to change the parameter though, just the format. There we go. Animation reload. Animation reload empty. animation reload misfire, animation idle underscore aim, and animation bore. And that's basically it for the animations. Let me make sure to delete this. This is leftover content from Goldsphere. Just delete this. I guess the next thing we can work on is the sounds. And so if we scroll down to the bottom of this thing right here, you can see sounds right here. So we can try to port them over. So let's do sound reload first. We gotta change the file path though, because if you remember, we changed the file that the sounds are held in to Mac 10 sounds. So let's port this over. Sound reload. So let's change this to weapons and go to game data, sounds, weapons, Mac 10 sounds, and then the sounds are held here. So let's change this file right here to Mac 10 sounds, and we can do this basically identical to the rest of the sounds. So let's copy them over. Sound reload empty, sound reload misfire, sound reload shoot, sound reload silencer shoot, and sound reload empty. There we go. There are no sounds that was included to this mod for draw and a holster sound, so we're just going to use the original Uzi sounds that are included within the mod. So we're not going to change these, but we are going to change the file path to. Oh, we already did that. Oops, I forgot that. There we go. Sound underscore empty. So now let's change these file paths. So for sound empty, let's change it to Mac 10 empty. Right here. For sound to reload host, for sound to reload instead of Mac 10 reload. Yeah, that's good. Instead of reload empty, instead of Mac 10 reload, we can put it as reload empty. Reload misfire. We can pick this one right here. Unjam. There we go. Mac 10 shoot right here. And silencer shot. Shoot silent. And that's good. That's basically it. That sounds good. That looks good. Let's see if I forgot anything. Let's actually change the name of the weapon up here to, instead of Mac 10 name, let's change it to Mac 10. There we go. I think that's basically it. So let's basically save it, and we'll change the name of it in a second. There we go. Let's save it. Let's go back to config weapons to change it to weapon M10. And another thing I forgot is that you have to also download. You also have to take the weapons LTX file that's located within config weapons and then weapons.ltx. You want to copy this over. Let's put it into the game data. And now you also want to include. You want to include this prompt right here. Copy this and paste it, and make sure that the new LTX file that you created is now here. So weapon.m10 altx and save. So that's that. The last thing that we have to worry about that I know of is the hand animation files. So hand animations are a very weird bunch. So I'll show you them right here. Meshes, dynamics, Mac 10. We left them here for now, but how hand animations are implemented are pretty weird. At least for this OGSR engine mod that I'm working with. So for some odd reason, the game cannot, for the life of itself, find this hand animation file. Like if I plop this into the game right here, copy, paste. If I just paste this into the game, try to load up the weapon, the game will crash because it can't find the hand animation files that we included within the weapon M10. It can't find these. It cannot find these for some odd reasons, such as Mac10 draw, Mac10 hide, Mac10 idle, Mac10 sprint, Mac10 walk, Mac10 shoot, Mac10 shoot when aim, Mac10 reload, Mac10 reload empty, Mac10 non-jam. It can't find any of these. I don't know why. So, so the way that I implemented hand animations into this mod right here is I took this hand animation file and put it inside of a hand animation file that the game can recognize. For the case of this, I'm pretty sure the developers of this mod had the same issue I had, which is exactly why that some mod makers put all the hand animations for every weapon that they've created into one singular hand animation file. It's pretty funny. So if we go to Goldsphere OGF Unpacked, go to Game Data, Config, Weapons, oops, I forgot, no, it's Meshes, Dynamics, Weapons, and you can see Weapon FN2000. Let's create this. So, Weapon FN2000, put it right here. Let's open it up, and you can see a hand animation file. Let's copy this over into here. And as you can see, I guess mod makers, I guess the people behind this mod also did what I did, because if you open this up, it contains an absolute shit ton of hand animations for different weapons in the game. A lot of these are left over from different mods, but as you can see, there's a bunch of them. And so we're going to continue the legacy by putting all the hand animations of the Mac10 right here, Mac10 hand animations, into this hand animation file that the game can recognize. So let's do that. So we have a weapon FN2000 HUD opened up. Let's just go back, open this up, go back, weapon Mac10 hands, and now you want to do file, tool, merge with, and you want to find the Mac10 hands.omf file, and it should be in Mac10, where is it? Mac10 game data, meshes, dynamics, weapon Mac10, and Mac10 hands. It may give you an info, motion skeletons are different. And if we scroll to the bottom of the FN2000 right here, you'll see all of the hand animations are copied over from this OMF file to this OMF file. So here they are. We can hit Control. We can just save this, and it should be fixed. So if we open this file again, there should be Mac10 hand animations at the bottom. And now the weapon is basically ready to be implemented. So I think I got everything done. If the game crashes, we can see what went wrong, and we could try to fix it. So let's start it. Let's close this out, Let's keep this open, the weapon Mac10 game data. Let's close this, and we can now put this mod that we created into a Goldsphere OGSR. And as you can see, this game data folder basically has nothing inside of it. It still has all the DB assets. So let's copy this over. Copy. Control V. Replace the file and destination. And let's give this game a start. Load game. Save prac 18. And something went wrong. Let's see what went wrong. Can't open section weapon_TT. That is not good. What the hell? I did not see this error when creating it. Maybe we messed up something in the weapon.ltx file. Let's look at that real quick. Config weapons. Oh, it looks like I deleted. It looks like I accidentally deleted weapon_TT in the weapons.ltx file, so let's change that. Looks like I accidentally deleted that. That is not good. So let's try it again. Let's copy over the game data to this right here. And it should hopefully work. Start game. And it's working so far. Let's open the spawn menu by pressing F1 in this mod. Very helpful. Thank God the devs included it. If we scroll down from weapons to try to find the Mac 10 thing we did. Where is it? Did I pass it? Mac 10. So let's spawn it in. And the game crashed. Something went wrong again. Let's see what went wrong this time. It can't find the model file. Oops, look at that. No. Dynamics weapon Mac 10. So let's try to look at this again. Looks like something went wrong in the config file, maybe. M10. Let's also look at the meshes folder, see if anything went wrong. Mac 10 world. What went wrong? I'm gonna skip the video until I'm able to find the fix. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm pretty sure I found the issue. If we look at this OGSR mod right here, if we go to game data, meshes, dynamics, I forgot to place these two files right here into the weapons folder, so let's do that. So dynamics, we create a new folder called weapons. Let's create that. Let's place these inside of it. And this is what caused the issue of it unable to find a weapons folder, so it's pretty strange. So it looks like it should work now. Let's delete these from the OGSR game right here, and let's try it again. So let's plop this game data folder into it. And let's see if it works. I hope it really works this time. So load up the save. I don't think it'll work. I think there will be another bug because of that big fuck up that I made of not putting it in the weapons folder, but we'll see. Mac 10. It looks like it works. It's our lucky day. And so here is the weapon. And I do want to, when porting over weapons, you may realize that when you're aiming down the sights, it doesn't look exactly the way it should. Like, you probably want the iron sight to be a little bit lower, like what I'm showing right here. You may want it that way. And for this engine that I'm working with, the OGSR engine, it has incredible helpful feature called, I think it's I forgot the name of it. I accidentally cut out my video. What I was saying is that this mod has an incredibly helpful feature called HUD adjust mode. And if we open the console by pressing the tilde key, type HUD adjust _mode, you can see that this command exists. And if we input a number, for example, let's put 1. You can see a little prompt appear on your screen. This is adjusting HUD position. We're able to change what values can be adjusted by holding Shift and pressing, for example, HUD by pressing 2 on the numpad. It will change it to adjusting HUD rotation. If we hold Shift and press 1 again, at the top it will say adjusting HUD position now. Wait, no. Yeah, if I hold Shift and press 2, it says now adjusting HUD rotation. If we hold Shift and press 3, it is now adjusting item position. This adjust mode is very helpful for configuring these parameters right here. If I hold Shift 1, we're able to change, like, for example, where the Mac 10 is on its iron sight. So as you can see, the iron sight is slightly above is slightly high. So once we're in this adjusting HUD position mode, and if we hold Z while aiming down, we're able to, hold Y while we're aiming, no, hold X while we're aiming down, we're able to change like the height of this. And if we hold C
Не видишь, я занята.
and move our mouse, we're now able to change how far the weapon is away from you. Let's lower it, and look at this. This is a pretty good position to put it at. So this HUD adjust mode is very useful because if you press tilde key right here, you'll see all the new parameters that you created for the weapon, and you can copy these numbers over and put them in the M10 configuration file. So right here, aim HUD offset position, aim HUD poset off 16:9. And this HUD adjust mode makes it so much easier to configure like where your weapons are being aimed at in game. Because if your mod doesn't have a feature, so if your game engine or Stalker mod doesn't have any way to manually adjust your HUD position using these configuration patterns, you have to manually change this step by step, save the config file, and reload the game for every small change you want to make if your engine doesn't have some sort of feature like this. So try to find if your engine has like a HUD adjust feature, sort of like this, because if it doesn't, you're in for a whole world of trouble. I know the Stalker Anomaly engine has a modification that someone created, I think Mr. Demonized, that has this HUD position adjust like mode as a mod that's downloadable and is much more in depth than like the one that this OGSR engine has. I know the OGSE engine has this feature, and so the Stalker Anomaly engine, the OGSR engine, which is the one I'm playing on, OGSR engine, and the OGSE engine all have this HUD position changing feature. So it's very useful. And this this HUD adjust mode also allows for the configuration of the fire point. So if I get out of this thing right here and try firing the weapon, as you can see, the fireball that you see when shooting the gun, it's inside the gun and isn't coming out the barrel. And we're able to change that by holding Shift 1, and we have this open. Hold Shift, and we can see if we press 5, this will change the fire point. So let's press 5 on the numpad, and it will change. A little box will appear, and you're now able to change the fire point.
Не поняла. Что?
So let's hold C and move the mouse back, and let's move the mouse back so that the fire point goes in front.
Не видишь, я занята.
Let's move a little further. Close this by holding Shift and then 0. And you can see the new HUD parameters that you created in the console. So if we press the console again, you're able to see the new parameters that have been created: fire point 001, fire point 2, shell point, and you're now able to copy those parameters that the game showed you, and you're able to copy them over and paste them into your weapon config file right here. Paste what the game told you into here, and you're now able to much more easily modify the weapon config file. Very useful feature. One more thing I want to note is whenever you're porting weapons, such as the OGSR engine from like Anomaly engine, sometimes your weapons appear very big in game. Like you may think that this gun is humongous. You may not think the gun is. Some weapons are basically appear in the game much larger than they probably should. This weapon isn't too egregiously sized. It looks pretty normal. I've ported like Galeals, like IMI Galeals into this game right here, Stalker Gold Sphere OGSR, and the Galil was massive. And the only way to change that is by scaling down the model the only way that I know of solving this issue is by scaling down the model. But you also have to scale down the animations, which is much harder. And you could do all of that by using Blender with Pavel Blend's X-Ray add-on. I'm not going to show this in this tutorial, but if you're wondering why that happens, that's basically why. That's basically how you can fix it. It's a pretty, it's not a great thing to do. I'm not going to show that in this video. Do I have anything more I want to share? Basically, what I hope that you took from this video is that this is the tip of the iceberg. I showed you kind of the bare minimum of what you're able to accomplish with modifying Stalker's game config files and everything. There are some resources that show you what a lot of weapon parameters do, but for the most part, you have to kind of figure things out yourself or ask people online for help. Or you can ask people online for help, people much more experienced, such as in the Anomaly Discord server or the Sea Consciousness Discord server in the mod development section. Those are great places to get help if you need help. Anything else? That's basically it. Like what I showed you in this video, tip of the iceberg, very basic stuff. But I hope you were able to somehow get a good hold on, get some general knowledge about how weapons work in Stalker, and hopefully apply this information to a bunch of other stuff, such as maybe characters or scripts or textures or whatever else. That's basically it for what I wanted to show in this video. I hope you're able to get some use out of it. In retrospect, this is a pretty long video. Probably going to be a very long video, and I don't think it was. Well, we'll see. That's all I wanted to share with you guys. Hope you found this video helpful. Hope you have a good night. Take care, everyone. See ya.